The humble star, beloved for his kindness and humility, walked into a luxury car dealership. What began as a routine visit turned into a moment that shocked millions. Inside, an unexpected confrontation unfolded, one that would leave everyone talking. Imagine being judged not for who you are, but for how you look. Now imagine this happening to a man known around the world for his grace and simplicity. What he did next wasn't just surprising, it was unforgettable. The scene was set: an extravagant showroom, an arrogant manager, and a quiet man searching for meaning in something as simple as a car. What started as a simple act of dismissal grew into a viral story that would remind the world about the true meaning of respect. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. If this story inspires you, subscribe to our channel because tomorrow we'll bring you another tale of resilience and transformation. This isn't just a story about cars or appearances. It's about humility, kindness, and the power of standing up to prejudice. Let's step into the sunny streets of Los Angeles, where the humble star unknowingly set the stage for a moment that would echo far beyond the dealership walls. The morning sun bathed Los Angeles in golden light, reflecting off the tall buildings and bustling streets. The city hummed with life, a mix of honking horns, laughter from sidewalk cafes, and the rhythmic footsteps of pedestrians. Amid the morning chaos, one figure moved quietly through the crowd: the humble star. His attire was simple, a black leather jacket and worn jeans. Despite his global fame, he blended into the city's rhythm as if he were just another passerby. His pace was unhurried, his demeanor calm. Those who recognized him received a warm smile or a polite nod, gestures that reflected his down-to-earth nature. Midway through his walk, he stepped into a small cafe, one he had visited for years. The familiar scent of fresh coffee greeted him as he approached the counter. "Good morning, Oliver," he said with a smile, addressing the barista by name. "Morning, the usual?" Oliver replied, his grin wide and genuine. "You know me too well," the humble star chuckled. As he waited for his coffee, his thoughts wandered. For months, he'd been searching for something, a project that combined his love for cars with a meaningful purpose. He envisioned restoring a rare vehicle, one that could be tied to a greater cause. With his coffee in hand, he resumed his walk. His destination wasn't far: a luxury car dealership known for its exclusivity and rare models. The dealership loomed ahead, its sleek glass facade reflecting the sunlight. Its grand architecture and pristine exterior exuded wealth and privilege. Pausing briefly, he took a deep breath before stepping inside, unaware of the confrontation awaiting him. The luxury car dealership was a fortress of extravagance. Its gleaming glass doors opened into a showroom that was nothing short of opulent. Polished marble floors reflected the brilliance of the cars on display, each vehicle a masterpiece of engineering and design. The scent of new leather lingered in the air, mingling with the faint hum of whispered conversations. The humble star stepped inside, his worn leather jacket and faded jeans a stark contrast to the pristine elegance around him. His quiet demeanor didn't draw immediate attention, but his presence carried an unspoken confidence. He moved purposefully, scanning the showroom until his gaze landed on a car positioned at the back. It was a rare model, its vintage design and immaculate paintwork standing out among the modern luxury vehicles. The curved lines and meticulous craftsmanship immediately captivated him. He walked toward it, his focus unwavering, ignoring the stares and murmurs beginning to ripple through the room. "Does he even know where he is?" one employee muttered under their breath. "Probably just here to look around," another said, smirking. The whispers didn't faze the humble star. He leaned in slightly, examining the car's details, appreciating its artistry. Moments later, a young employee approached, phone in hand, barely glancing up. "Hang on," they said dismissively. "I'll get someone to help you." He nodded politely but couldn't help the slight furrow in his brow. The atmosphere was already shifting, the tension almost palpable. He stood by the car, studying it further as the employee's quiet judgments continued. Then the sound of clicking heels broke the murmurs. Victoria Hastings, the dealership manager, entered the scene. Her sharp, tailored suit and commanding presence exuded authority. She moved with precision, her gaze sweeping the room before landing on the humble star. Victoria approached him slowly, her expression neutral but her eyes appraising. "This model," she began, her tone professional but with a faint edge, "is one of the most exclusive cars we've ever had. Very few people even get the chance to see it, let alone own it." The humble star straightened and turned to face her. "That's why I'm here," he replied, his voice calm and polite. Her gaze dropped briefly to his jacket and jeans before returning to his face. A faint smile appeared, but it was calculated rather than genuine. "Well," she said, "I hope you're prepared. This isn't just a car, it's a symbol of status, something not everyone can appreciate." His expression remained steady, unbothered by her thinly veiled skepticism. "I'd still like to know more about it," he said evenly. Victoria folded her arms, taking a moment to assess him further. The tension in the room grew as employees and customers began to take notice of their interaction. "Well," she said finally, "let me just say that cars like this attract a certain kind of clientele. It's not for everyone." The humble star didn't flinch. He met her gaze with quiet determination, the weight of her words settling around them. What had begun as a simple inquiry was quickly turning into a moment far more significant. Victoria Hastings took a small step closer, her arms still folded across her chest. She studied the humble star for a moment, her sharp gaze flickering between him and the car. Her polished smile barely concealed the skepticism behind her eyes. "This model," she began again, her tone firmer now, "isn't just a car. It's a statement, a piece of history for those who truly understand its value. It's priced well beyond what most people could even imagine spending." The humble star nodded thoughtfully, his gaze still fixed on the car. "That's why I'd like to learn more about it," he replied, his voice calm and composed. Victoria's smile thinned as she tilted her head slightly. "Of course," she said, her tone shifting to one of forced politeness. "But I have to ask, are you familiar with the price range for a vehicle like this?" "I have an idea," he said, meeting her gaze without hesitation. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Good, because cars like this attract a particular kind of buyer. Someone who understands the exclusivity, the craftsmanship, the lifestyle that comes with it." She let the words hang in the air, her meaning clear. The humble star didn't flinch. "That's why I'm interested," he said simply. Victoria's expression hardened and her voice grew sharper. "With all due respect, sir, you don't exactly fit the profile of our typical client." The room seemed to grow quieter as her words echoed. Employees and even a few customers turned their attention toward the interaction. Their curiosity piqued. "Profile?" the humble star repeated, his tone still even. "Yes," Victoria said with a small nod. "Our clients are people who understand what it means to own something like this. It's not just about buying a car, it's about making a statement. And frankly, looking at you—" She trailed off, her meaning unmistakable. The humble star took a slow breath, his calm exterior unwavering. "Interesting," he said after a moment. "It's curious how much you seem to know about people based on what they're wearing." Victoria blinked, caught off guard by his reply. "I don't mean to offend," she said quickly, though her tone suggested otherwise. "It's just, we've had people come in before, look around, and waste our time with questions they never intended to follow through on. And you've decided I'm one of those people?" he asked, his voice carrying a quiet strength. Her lips tightened into a thin line. "I've been in this business long enough to recognize certain patterns," she said. The humble star tilted his head slightly, as if considering her words. Then with a faint smile, he replied, "And how often are those patterns wrong?" Victoria's composure wavered. Her voice grew sharper. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but this dealership is for serious buyers, people who can afford to back up their interest." "Respect doesn't cost anything," the humble star said, his tone still calm, but carrying an unmistakable edge. "But it seems harder to find than the rarest car here." Her face flushed slightly, a flicker of anger crossing her features. "This isn't about respect," she snapped. "This is about reality. If you're here to dream, that's fine. But don't waste my time pretending you belong." The humble star's calm gaze didn't falter. He stood quietly for a moment before replying. "Funny how you define belonging," he said. "It's not based on character or intention, but on what you assume about someone at a glance." Victoria's irritation boiled over, her voice rising slightly. I know exactly what I'm talking about. People come in here all the time to play pretend. If that's what you're here for, let's not waste any more time. The humble star straightened, his quiet demeanor shifting slightly. There was a firmness in his voice now, a restrained indignation. And what if I'm not pretending? Victoria let out a short, dry laugh. Then I'd say you're in the wrong place, she said bluntly, because this dealership is for people who have something to prove, status, wealth, exclusivity. You don't look like you have any of those. The room fell into an uneasy silence. Employees froze, their eyes darting between the two. Even customers, who had been pretending not to notice, were now openly watching. The humble star took a step forward, closing the small gap between them. Maybe that's the problem, he said quietly. You're so focused on appearances, you can't see beyond them. Victoria's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. You talk about exclusivity, he continued, his voice steady, but the real luxury is treating people with respect. That's what's truly rare here. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to silence the entire showroom. Then Victoria took a step back, crossing her arms defensively. Well, she said, her voice tight, if that's how you see it, maybe you should shop somewhere else. The humble star offered a faint smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. Maybe I will, he said, but I hope you'll think about what I've said. He turned back to the car, his focus returning to its details, but the interaction had already changed the room. The humble star had made his point, and while Victoria stood silent, her expression betrayed the impact of his words. The humble star left the dealership quietly, but the confrontation he had just endured was far from over. Unbeknownst to him, a young man standing in the corner of the showroom had recorded the entire exchange on his phone. From the dismissive remarks to the cutting accusations, every moment had been captured, including the humble star's calm yet powerful responses. By the time the humble star disappeared into the sunlight, the video was already on its way to going viral. Uploaded with the caption, "A lesson in respect, watch this," the clip began spreading across social media like wildfire. Within hours, it had millions of views. The footage showed the humble star being judged for his appearance, only to respond with composure and wisdom. His line, "Respect doesn't cost anything, but it seems harder to find than the rarest car here," struck a chord with viewers. Memes, quotes, and hashtags flooded the internet. Comments poured in from every corner of the globe. How could they treat someone like him this way? He's the definition of humility. This is why he's loved. He handled it with grace, even when they didn't deserve it. Victoria Hastings should be fired. What an embarrassing display of arrogance. News outlets quickly picked up the story. Articles, blog posts, and video analyses dissected every moment of the clip. It wasn't just a viral video anymore. It had become a global conversation about respect and judgment. The humble star's calm demeanor was praised universally. People compared his restraint and dignity to the dismissive arrogance displayed by the dealership manager. The world seemed to rally behind him, taking his words as a call to action. Victoria Hastings, on the other hand, became a symbol of elitism and prejudice. Her name trended alongside hashtags like "Respect is luxury" and "Learn from humility." The backlash was swift and unrelenting, with many calling for her removal from her position. Amid the public outrage, one moment from the video stood out: the humble star's quiet strength as he delivered his final line. It became a rallying cry, a reminder that respect should never be tied to appearances or status. The video had done more than expose a moment of injustice. It had sparked a movement. Discussions about prejudice, judgment, and the value of humility dominated conversations online and offline. The humble star's response had turned a moment of disrespect into a lesson that resonated far beyond the walls of the dealership. The viral video caused immediate chaos for the dealership. Within hours of its release, the once prestigious business faced a tidal wave of backlash. Social media platforms were flooded with comments condemning the treatment of the humble star and calling for accountability. The hashtags "Respect is luxury" and "Learn from humility" dominated online conversations. Comments ranged from outright outrage to personal stories of similar experiences. This dealership just lost my business. Treating people like this is unacceptable. Victoria Hastings embodies everything wrong with elitist attitudes. Fire her now. Respect shouldn't be a luxury. It should be a basic expectation. The dealership's reputation, once spotless, was now in tatters. Negative reviews poured in across platforms, dragging their customer ratings down. Loyal clients canceled appointments, while potential customers vowed never to set foot in the showroom. The financial impact was immediate. Meanwhile, employees at the dealership found themselves caught in the storm. Some remained silent, fearful for their jobs, while others began speaking out anonymously. Victoria's behavior wasn't a one-time thing, one employee revealed to a local journalist. She's always judged people by their appearance. If someone didn't look wealthy enough, she'd dismiss them outright. Another employee added, "We've lost customers before because of her attitude, but this is on a whole other level." As the backlash intensified, Victoria Hastings tried to defend herself. She released a carefully worded statement. "The situation was a misunderstanding. I didn't immediately recognize the individual, and my actions were misinterpreted. I apologize if anyone was offended." The apology only fueled the outrage. People accused her of offering excuses instead of genuine remorse. One social media user wrote, "Misinterpreted? We saw the video. This wasn't a mistake, it's who she is." News outlets dissected her response, comparing it to the video and highlighting the stark contrast between her words and her actions. The public's demand for her removal grew louder, and the dealership's leadership faced mounting pressure to act. Eventually, the dealership issued a formal apology. "We deeply regret the actions of our former manager, which do not align with our values. Effective immediately, she is no longer employed here. We are committed to ensuring this never happens again." Victoria's dismissal was swift, but the damage had already been done. The dealership's sales plummeted, and its once luxurious showroom stood eerily empty. Former clients distanced themselves from the brand, unwilling to associate with a business now synonymous with arrogance and prejudice. As the humble star's video continued to spread, the story became more than just a scandal. It was a cautionary tale, a reminder that how businesses treat people matters deeply. For the dealership, the fallout wasn't just about losing sales. It was about losing trust. Victoria Hastings, once confident and authoritative, became a symbol of everything the public resented. Her name was now a lesson in what not to do, a stark warning to those who placed appearances above respect. Through it all, the humble star remained silent. He didn't issue statements or participate in the backlash. Instead, he let the video and its message speak for themselves. His calm, dignified response had already accomplished more than words ever could. The fallout at the dealership wasn't just a punishment, it was a reckoning. And for those who watched the story unfold, it was a reminder that respect is more valuable than any luxury item could ever be. As the video of his confrontation with Victoria Hastings continued to dominate headlines and social media, the humble star remained characteristically quiet. He wasn't one to seek attention, and he certainly didn't want to fuel the public outrage further. Instead, he took time to reflect. At his modest home, far removed from the glitz and chaos of the internet, he thought deeply about what had transpired. Sitting on his porch with a cup of coffee in hand, he replayed the events in his mind. He wasn't angry. He rarely was. But he couldn't ignore the broader implications of what had happened. "This isn't about me," he thought. "How many people face this kind of judgment every day without the privilege of being heard?" The humble star believed that moments like these had the potential to inspire change, but only if they were handled the right way. He didn't want the focus to remain on the fallout or Victoria Hastings. Instead, he wanted to shift the conversation towards something more meaningful, a reminder of how respect and kindness could transcend prejudice. Later that evening, he called a close friend. "The video is everywhere," his friend said, sounding almost overwhelmed. "The world is on your side. You don't need to do anything." "That's exactly why I need to do something," the humble star replied. "This can't just be another viral moment that people forget about in a week. It has to mean more." His friend was quiet for a moment before asking, "So, what are you going to do?" He smiled faintly, his voice steady. "Handle it my way," he said. The car he had admired at the dealership lingered in his thoughts. He couldn't deny its beauty or the way it represented the kind of craftsmanship he admired, but now it had come to symbolize something else entirely. A moment of disrespect that had ignited a global conversation. The next day, as the video continued to dominate social media, the humble star began making plans. He wasn't interested in retaliation or furthering the public outrage. Instead, he wanted to turn this experience into a lesson, a reminder that respect should never depend on appearances or status. He spoke to a trusted confidant about his idea. "What if the dealership doesn't respond well when you go back?" they asked. "I'm not going back to argue," he replied. "I'm going back to make a point. Whether or not they understand it isn't up to me." By the end of the day, his resolve was unshakable. The humble star knew the eyes of the world were on him, but he wasn't driven by pressure or public opinion. His actions would come from a place of conviction, a quiet strength that had always defined him. This wasn't just about a car or a moment of disrespect. It was about showing the world that even in the face of judgment, dignity and humility could inspire real change. As the sun set on another day of headlines and hashtags, the humble star prepared for what came next. He wasn't seeking attention or validation. He was seeking to lead by example. The dealership felt different as the humble star walked through its doors again. The once bustling showroom, filled with chatter and confidence, was now eerily quiet. The fallout from the viral video had left its mark. Employees moved hesitantly, their nervous glances following him as he made his way across the floor. Victoria Hastings stood behind the counter, her posture rigid but lacking its usual authority. Her sharp confidence had been replaced by unease. She watched as the humble star approached the car that had captured his attention during his last visit. He paused in front of the vehicle, his hand brushing lightly against its surface. The car was as beautiful as he remembered, its sleek lines and polished finish a testament to craftsmanship. Yet the atmosphere in the room was heavy, every movement filled with tension. Victoria hesitated before stepping forward, her steps slower than before. When she finally reached him, her voice was quieter, almost cautious. "Mr." she began, faltering slightly. "Sir, I want to apologize for what happened last time. I believe we may have misunderstood one another." The humble star turned to face her, his expression calm but unreadable. "Misunderstood?" he repeated softly. Victoria swallowed hard, her composure slipping. "I mean, I hope we can start over. Perhaps I could show you more about the car you were interested in." The humble star studied her for a moment, his gaze steady. "This isn't about starting over," he said, his voice measured. "The issue here isn't just how you treated me, it's how you treat people, any person who walks through those doors." Victoria's eyes darted briefly to the employees behind her, who were now watching the exchange in silence. "I understand," she said quickly, though her tone was uncertain. The humble star took a step back, his calm demeanor unwavering. "Do you?" he asked. "Because respect shouldn't be conditional. It's not something you reserve for those you deem worthy. It's something everyone deserves." Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Her silence spoke volumes. The humble star continued, his voice firm but not unkind. "This car is beautiful. It's exactly what I was looking for. But after what I experienced here, I can't buy it. Not from this dealership." The weight of his words hung heavily in the air. Employees exchanged uneasy glances, while Victoria's expression faltered further. He turned toward the rest of the showroom, his words directed to everyone present. "True luxury isn't about exclusivity or status. It's about dignity, respect, and how we treat one another. That's what's truly rare, and it's worth far more than anything you can put a price on." The room was silent as his message sank in. Victoria, for all her authority, seemed smaller in that moment, her confidence replaced by visible regret. Without another word, the humble star turned and began walking toward the exit. The sound of his footsteps echoed across the marble floor, the only noise in the otherwise still room. Just as he reached the doors, he paused. Turning back, he locked eyes with Victoria one last time. "I hope this serves as a lesson, not just for you, but for everyone here. Respect shouldn't be rare, it should be a given." With that, He pushed the doors open and stepped outside. The bright sunlight reflected off the glass facade, casting long shadows behind him as he walked away. Inside the dealership, the silence remained. Employees stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Victoria Hastings, for all her attempts to regain control, was left with the undeniable truth of what had just transpired. The humble star's departure wasn't just the end of a visit, it was the beginning of a transformation, and the lesson he left behind would echo long after the sound of his footsteps had faded. The humble star didn't look back as he left the dealership. His quiet departure spoke louder than any words could, but the impact of his actions continued to ripple. The viral video, which had already sparked global conversations, now carried a deeper message, one that resonated far beyond the luxury car showroom. A few days later, he walked into another dealership, one far more modest than the one he had left behind. The building was unassuming, its staff warm and welcoming. The owner, Sam, greeted him with a genuine smile. "Welcome," Sam said, extending his hand. "How can I help you today?" The humble star shook his hand. "I'm looking for something special, a car with character, history, and meaning." Sam nodded thoughtfully. "You've come to the right place. Let's see what we can find." Unlike his previous experience, this interaction was free of judgment or pretense. Sam and his team treated the humble star with respect, not because of who he was, but because it was the way they treated everyone. After some time, the humble star found a car that spoke to him. It wasn't flashy or extravagant, but it had history and craftsmanship, everything he had been looking for. He purchased the car that day, posing for a photo with Sam and his team. Later, he posted the photo on social media with a simple caption, "True luxury is being treated with respect. Thank you for reminding me of that." The post went viral almost instantly, sparking a second wave of conversations. People praised his choice, not just for the car, but for highlighting a business that valued dignity over status. Sam's dealership quickly gained attention, with customers flocking to support a place that embodied respect and humility. The humble star's actions had turned the spotlight onto a business that aligned with his values, and the results were immediate. The story didn't end there. The humble star's quiet example inspired a movement. People began sharing their own stories of judgment and prejudice, using hashtags like "We respect his luxury" and "Learn from humility." Businesses and organizations took note, reevaluating how they treated their customers and employees alike. Through his actions, the humble star reminded the world that respect isn't just a courtesy, it's a necessity. His message was clear. Appearances don't define worth, and dignity should never be conditional. For Sam and his dealership, the experience was life-changing. But for the world, it was a powerful lesson. The humble star had transformed a moment of judgment into an enduring reminder of the value of kindness, humility, and respect. The story of the humble star didn't end with the car he purchased or the viral video that sparked global attention. Instead, it became a timeless reminder of the power of respect. Through his actions, he showed the world that dignity isn't about wealth or status. It's about how we treat one another. His words, "Respect doesn't cost a thing, but is worth more than any luxury," became a mantra for those seeking to make the world a kinder place. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness always matters. And if you enjoy tales of hope, resilience, and transformation, subscribe to our channel.